Our goal is to build loyal relationships, to collaborate on substantial service projects that contribute to society's benefit, as well as promote universal principles to contribute to greater understanding and peace. We passionately believe in the power of dialogue to change attitudes. First, we'll be hearing tonight from Dr. Buck. Dr. Dorothy Buck's own spiritual quest led her from many years as a classical ballet performer and teacher to Carmelite spirituality. After writing The Dance of Life, published in 1987 by Peregrine House in New York City, her interest in spirituality and psychology led to a Ph.D. in religion and literature from Boston University, as well as an MA in pastoral counseling from Emmanuel College, with further training at the Boston Institute for Psychotherapy. She has a private practice as a licensed mental health practitioner and pastoral counselor in Davis Square in Somerville, Massachusetts. Her interest in the three Abrahamic traditions of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism has led her to publish many articles and books on interfaith topics and to establish networks of prayer groups, such as the modern revival of the Badalia. Now, along with chapters in 2 other books, her articles have appeared in Dance Magazine, Living Prayer, Sufi, a journal of Sufism, The Quest, and in the National Catholic Reporter. She has 2 books on the legacy of Louis Massignon, Dialogues with Saints and Mystics in the Spirit of Louis Massignon, published by K&P Publications in 2002, as well as Louis Massignon, a pioneer of interfaith dialogue, the Badalia Prayer Movement, published in 2016. Without further ado, I'll give the stage to Dr. Dorothy Buck.
Hi, I'm going to introduce Dr. Saritoprak, who we call Dr. Zeki, and then I will follow that with a little introduction to what his talk is going to be about. So Dr. Saritoprak has been teaching Islamic studies courses in the Theology and Religious Studies Department at John Carroll University since 2002. Since then, he has become the inaugural holder of the Badiouzaman Zayed Nursi Chair in Islamic Studies. At John Carroll University, Dr. Saritoprak has been a tireless advocate for diversity and helping JCU to become a more welcoming place for Muslim and other minority students. He helped found and still serves as the advisor to the Muslim Student Society and often leads the group's Jummah or Friday prayer. Outside of JCU, Dr. Saritoprak is a leader in dialogue and interfaith work. He is a member of the National Catholic Muslim Dialogue and currently a Muslim co-chair for the Midwest Catholic Muslim Dialogue, both of which are co-sponsored by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and the Islamic Society of North America. In his many writings, including his books, Islam's Jesus and Islamic Spirituality, and his countless public appearances, Dr. Saritoprak has become a tireless advocate for dialogue, reconciliation, and peace between the members of all religious traditions. He is currently working on a manuscript for a book on Islamic eschatology. For those that don't know very much about Sufism, I thought I would give a little introduction to Dr. Zeki's talk with an introduction to the Islamic mystic and poet Rumi. He is well known in the Muslim world as Mevlana, founder of the Mevlevi Sufi Brotherhood. He was given the name Jalal Uddin, which means the keeper of the faith, by his parents when he was born. There is some confusion as to whether the city of Balkh, where he was born, was in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. However, it is clear that this was a time of great turmoil and invasion of Islamic lands by the Mongols that continued throughout Rumi's life. There's also some confusion about the exact date of his birth, although most texts say September 30th, 1207, so 1207. His father was a famous spiritual teacher who became known as the Elder Master, the Sultan of the Ulama, or Sultan of the Scholars. Rumi's greatest masterpiece is the Mathnawi, consisting of 25,618 couplets in verse, originally written in the Persian language. This is a collection in 6 volumes expressing mystical experience and the refining of the human soul through fables. Rumi is known as an advocate of universal love and world peace. Professor Saritoprak's talk for today is called Spiritual Courtesy and Respect from the Mathnawi. So let me introduce Dr. Saritoprak, Dr. Zeki.
I believe Dr. Zeki is running a little late, so we're just going to wait for him during this time. But thank you so much for that introduction. We'll just wait now until he arrives.
Okay.
We just heard from Dr. Zeki. He will be here in about 1 to 2 minutes.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you.
Alaikum salam.
Sorry, we had, there is an event here. And first it was prayer time. So we finished our prayer, but then we had a hard time to find the Wi-Fi. So eventually we were successful. So now we are in. So should we start, or how should you go? Or have you started already?
I did an introduction for you.
Introduction.
Okay. And what I did was introduce Rumi for those people that don't know anything about him.
Wonderful.
And then I led into the Mathnawi, a little history of what the Mathnawi is, that is his famous work. So you are ready to give your talk.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So our topic is spiritual readings. And then we have, inshallah, we will continue this for about 10 months. Every Friday of the last Friday of every month, inshallah, we will have this this gathering. This was the first one, and that's why it became a little bit hectic. I'm very sorry for that. Today we are talking about Rumi, and one aspect of Rumi that has some spiritual connotation. I will share with you, let me see if I can share with you my screen, and then we will go from there. I hope the noise is not coming from upstairs, so it should be fine. Is it good now? Can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we basically we are going to have something from the Mathnawi, Rumi's famous work, and there are several verses. You know, we are going to elaborate on several verses. I have some commentaries. I put together some of my commentaries on these verses. So this is from book 1 of the Mathnawi, and verse in this slide you will see verse 78 and 79. The topic is basically about the spiritual courtesy and respect. Spiritual courtesy and respect, to be kind, to be respectful in all aspects of life. So what is the meaning of it? Rumi is explaining this to us. In this verse 78, he says, we should seek from God the favor of behaving with spiritual courtesy and respect. Since the rude person is excluded from the grace of the Lord. The rude person is excluded from the grace of the Lord. So here it gives us a message that I found this also in a prophetic hadith. The Prophet of Islam, peace and blessings be upon him, says, I was sent to perfect good character. So the Prophet suggests that the purpose of his being sent by Allah, by God to humanity, is to bring good characters to people, to make perfection of the characters of people. Human beings are developing. They are not complete. They are not finalized. So daily they can increase their characters and their beautiful behaviors. And therefore, Rumi in this verse says, the rude person is excluded from the grace of the Lord. That means he will have less from the mercy of the divine, because rudeness is obstacle to the coming of the mercy of God. So in the second verse, again, he says, the rude person does not keep himself in a state of affliction alone, but sets fires to all the regions of the world. Not only making himself miserable, but causing other people to become miserable. With the Rumi's term, he says, sets fire to all the regions, puts fire on people, and knowingly or unknowingly being rude is not something that will be compatible with the Islamic spiritual life. That's why mystics would smile, would always smile. They are not angry. They are not angry. They don't see them as an angry people. Why? Because they know that through kindness, the mercy of the divine comes, not through rudeness, not through anger. And therefore, there is a hadith of the Prophet which says, even your smiling is a charity. Your smiling is a charity, the Prophet says. The next verse is, again, speaks of this concept, but some referring to some historical events that is found in the Hebrew Bible, in the New Testament, in the Injil, in the Gospel of Jesus. And of course, it is from the Quran. Rumi is referring to the Holy Quran, some verses of the Quran. He says, a table was arriving from heaven without any effort of buying and selling and talking and listening. There was a table coming from heaven without any buying and selling and talking and listening. I look at the commentaries on this, generally, they would say a table, this word occurs in the Quran to describe a table of food from heaven, which Prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, prayed for and received it. This is in chapter 5, verse 114. Actually, the entire chapter is named after this table. It's called the table. But here, the word refers to the manna and quails sent to the people of Moses in the desert. Rumi is referring to that one, because then we will see in the next verse, he says, but then in the midst of the people of Moses, some persons spoke rudely. Where are the garlic and lentils? So the table coming from heaven in this allegorical, of course, it's about allegorical. So I think what is understood in this verse from Rumi is that you have a share God has given to you, be content with the share that you are given. And if you are content, you will have a better one. And always you will have a better and better and better if you are content with what is given to you as your share in this world. So what is criticized here is greed. Do not be greedy. Greed is a very negative behavior. In verse 82 and 83, again, it is referring to that. The table and bread from heaven was ended immediately because of the greed. And there remained for us the painful toil of farming with shovel for planting and scythe for reaping. So why? Because we were not, Rumi says, we're not content with what was given to us. And then, of course, then we are to a certain extent forced to get our sustenance through some hardship works. But initially, it could be easier if we were content enough. Again, Rumi again says, when Jesus interceded with prayers, God sent a table with an abundance of food on trays. if you pray. Now, in this case, of course, in the miracle, this is the miracle. Prophets have miracles in Islam, and Rumi doesn't go into these details. It was a miracle. Having a table coming from sky, it was a miracle of Jesus. So human beings, they have to be content, and also they have to work. They have to work. Working is not about greed. Working is not greed. Working is recommended. But to be jealous, to be greedy, that is not good. That is against the teaching of Islamic spirituality. But working is not against the teaching of Islamic spirituality. Rumi doesn't elaborate on that dimension here, but it says through the prayer of Jesus, a table was coming from heaven. So again, those insolent ones abandoned courtesy and respect and took the food home with them like beggars. Now, to just be on the topic now, I am a guest in one of these houses. Actually, I like to share with you. I shared with Ahmed the story. This has been planned for a long time. The Bishop of Cleveland is invited to a dinner, and they invited me to be part of it. So I said, I have two options: either to cancel my meeting with the bishop, or to come and join you and then have my Zoom meeting. And they said, we prefer the second one. Come and first we will have a little talk, a meeting, and then you can go ahead with your Zoom meeting. So this we started. Now they are going to give us food. If I take this food to home, and not enough, as if it was not enough to eat, and take something, getting more to home, that will be greed. Yeah, if he wants to give something and not throwing to the trash, that's another story. But if you are not satisfied and you like to have more and more and more, then you'll never become satisfied. It is actually, there's a hadith of the Prophet. It says, like a hungry person who eats and eats and eats, but never gets satisfied. And that is what Rumi is criticizing. Courtesy, spiritual courtesy is that, to avoid greed, to not to be insolent. Again, in the verse 85, he says, Jesus asked them earnestly to be respectful, saying, but this food is enduring and won't be decreased from the earth. So don't worry, you will not die out of starvation. You have something, eat and be thankful to God for what you have, and then you will have again when you are hungry. But don't put too much on a burden on yourself without even being hungry. As if after like 1 week you will become hungry, and then now you are eating and eating and eating and actually harming yourself. When the time comes, you'll find that food. Don't worry. You're going to find. If you have trust in God, God will help you to find. But you have to work, as I said. Rumi does not elaborate on this because we are not living in the time of miracles. You don't expect a food coming from sky. God will not send a food sent to you from sky. You should work, but whatever you gain, you should be content with it. And then verse 86 and 87, acting suspiciously and bringing greed to the table of the divine grandeur is rejection and ingratitude. And that is against spiritual courtesy, spiritual respect. This respect is mostly about God. Respecting God means that you become thankful to God. You become grateful to God. And therefore, become suspicious, bringing greed to the table of the divine. In this analogy that Rumi gives is the table of Jesus that brought from the heaven, then it will be rejection and ingratitude. And then verse 87, and so because of those people with faces like beggars and blinded by greed, that gate of the divine mercy became shut for them. Now here it's not against beggars. Beggars are not kind of negatively described, but yeah, people might have some conditions, and they might be poor. In reality, they might be poor, because there's a verse in the Quran. It says, "Do not turn away a beggar. If a beggar comes to you and asks for something, give them, because they are in need." In this case, the person is not beggar. The person is greedy. He is not satisfied, not because he needs, because he is not satisfied, because he is greedy. And because of that, Rumi compares these two people who are just asking not because they are in need of it, but they are not satisfied with what they are given. And therefore, if the person acts that way, the mercy of the divine became shut for them. They will not get divine mercy. And then let's go to verse 88 and 89. Again, some respect for the divine, and then some courtesy described here as our connection to the realm of nature and our activities, our actions. Our actions have impact on the world of nature. For example, he says, after the refusal of paying charity for the poor, the rain clouds do not come. If you do not give charity to the poor, you will have some kind of drought, Rumi says. If there is drought, if there is lack of rain, there are some spiritual reasons as well. Yeah, you can explain something physically, but for Rumi, in Rumi's understanding, there are some spiritual reasons. What are those spiritual reasons? One of them here, he says, refusal of paying charity. That means zakat, paying sadaqah or zakat, like 2.5% of your wealth to the poor people. That is compulsory. You have to give. A colleague of mine who is a Catholic priest once said, the thing that I like about Islam the most is that Islam made charity compulsory. You have to give. And here in this case is, Rumi says, if you don't give, expect some calamity, some drought, some famine, because God has given to you, but you did not respect. You did not respect God, and you did not respect poor, because these poor people were in need and you did not think of them. And therefore God will take it back. We'll take his bounties back, because we were not fulfilling what he expected from us. And also, when unlawful sex occurs, the plague spreads to all directions. Again, here Rumi refers to committing adultery. That also can cause some calamities like plagues. Rumi thinks of some physical calamities as partially a result of some negative actions. If it becomes dominant, or if those actions become dominant, and like people make that as a habit, it becomes a reason for the coming of plagues. And then again, verse 89, whatever gloom and grief comes to you is because of reckless impudence and also insolence. Impudence, disrespect and not considering the result of your action. Basically what's criticized here by Rumi is that if people do not think that their bad behaviors will result in negative consequences, then they will have those negative consequences. All these are related to the happiness of humanity. How people can become happy is based on this. If they have these behaviors, then this courtesy, this respect will result in the happiness of people. I was thinking of this when we look at our social life. Just one example in while driving. While driving, if you are respectful for the other person, you will actually prevent many accidents. You will save many lives. Just give chance to the other person. Don't be greedy. Be kind. Be kind. They put on the back of their cars sometimes, be kind. I think that's what Rumi is emphasizing here. Be kind, be respectful, and have courtesy, and then you will bring happiness to people. Verse 90 and 91, let me see if I have any comment on this. Whoever acts with bold impudence in the path of the beloved is a highway robber of the true man of the spiritual way and is not a man. Very, very strong statement of Rumi. If a person acts with disrespect, bold disrespect in the path of the beloved is referring to Allah, to God. Al-Wadud, as we know, one of the divine names is Al-Wadud. So any person who acts that way in this path of love is a highway robber. Rumi says he's a robber. He is robber, and not even that. He says he's not a man. He's not a human being. He's strongly criticizing. Of course, when he says he's not a human being that is ideally to be. He's a human being, but it is not at that level that ideally he has to be or she has to be. Because ideally, human being is the one who have these qualities. When they lost these qualities, they lost certain level of their humanity. And then verse 91, by means of spiritual courtesy and respect, the heavens became full of light. If you have this in our social life, in our personal life, in our family life, spiritual courtesy and respect, the heavens will become full of light. And by means of such respect, the angels became innocent and pure. Why angels were so innocent and so pure? Because of this respect. What was the respect? I think Rumi here refers to the story of the creation of Adam. When God created Adam, he asked all to bow down as a respect for his creation. The Quran says, God says, I have created him with my own hands. So he's very special. He's very precious. I ask you to bow down before him out of respect. All angels accepted and bowed down before Adam. In chapter 2, chapter Al-Baqarah, and they are moving to this side. Okay.
Because they can hear you clear.
Oh, I see. Okay. sorry, upstairs they're also hearing me, so it's okay. I think we are talking to different groups now. We'll be done soon. So basically, such a respect is angels became a part of the the qualities of angels, and eventually the one who will be away from the mercy of God. Rumi will mention him, and that is this verse in verse 92. By the sun became eclipsed because of insolence, but the sun became eclipsed because of insolence, and because of rashness, an angel such as Azazel was turned away from the gate to the angelic realm. Azazel is the name of Satan. Azazel was among angels, and therefore Azazel did not accept God's command. God said, bow down. He said, I am better than Adam. He did not respect God's command. I think Rumi is emphasizing this. The reason he became Satan was this disrespect. He said, I am better than him, and therefore I would not bow down before him. You have created him from soil. You created me from fire. Fire is better than soil. That's what Azazel said. Azazel is the name of Satan. Among angels, his name was, he was known as Azazel. Like other angels would have name, so Satan has also a name, and that was Azazel. So Rumi says he became away from the angelic realm because of this respect for the command of the divine. And if human beings act that way, they will become on that part, not on the part of angels. If they act respectfully and with courtesy, they will become like in the realm of angels. And I think we have QA. If we have some questions, I will be glad to answer your questions as well.
Okay.
I have a hard time to hear you, Dorothy.
Yeah, I don't see.
Oh, there are no questions?
I guess I'm there. I don't know. Yeah, visually I can't see myself, but that's okay.
I can see.
Yeah, I have a few questions for you. I'm very steeped in, Rumi. I did give a talk at MIT in 2007 after we came back from Turkey and had visited Konya. So I have quite a bit of information there. And some of what I said before you came, Zeki, was
Thank you very much.
A little bit from the talk I gave, because, it's, and that's available on my website. Anybody can look at the whole talk if they want to. So from that, the Mevlevi school in Turkey, in Konya is beautiful to visit, and to hear what Rumi was, how he was educating the students, his students there that became the dervishes. And I don't know if you want to speak for a minute, a little bit about that wonderful place.
There are some stories that Rumi initially was a scholar of like classical Islamic scholar. And then on one occasion, a visitor comes and attends his circle of class. Class was in the circle shape. Student will meet around him and then will sit, and Rumi will explain the text. So this visitor, I think this is a good example of how Rumi became a different person. This visitor took the textbook and threw it into a pond, like a water. And Rumi was very upset. What are you doing? Now, how can I will find this book again? All ink would be gone, and I will not be able to read this book. And the person took the book from the pond and gave it to Rumi. The book was dry. So Rumi said, what is this? There is something extraordinary situation here. And that was Shams Tabriz. Shams Tabriz became like Rumi's best friend, the beloved. It is believed that he was able to see the light of the divine in his personality. And Shams said, Rumi, what you are teaching is the teaching of Zahir, Ilm al-Zahir, the knowledge of appearance. But there is also something called Ilm al-Batin, the knowledge of inner knowledge, the knowledge that is not visible. So you need that knowledge. This is about that knowledge. You put the book into water and it doesn't get wet. That is a different knowledge. And then from that point, Rumi became much more involved with spirituality, with spiritual development. Of course, that knowledge also helped him, because in Islam, both spiritual and other knowledge, what we can call the knowledge of Zahir, also is important, because there are many things that are apparent. So, but there is mulk and there is malakut. Mulk is the appearance of things, and malakut is the invisible side of the things. For every creation, there is these two dimensions. There are these two dimensions, visible and invisible sides. And therefore, if the eyes of heart are open, and that was Rumi would try from that point, that moment on, to make efforts to make the eyes of his heart open. Then the people will be able to see what is invisible. And Rumi would later have those type of students. He would have whirling tradition. Of course, he would do as a spiritual exercise, spiritual things, not as a kind of, what we have today is mostly a kind of cultural. Also, it has connotations, even if it is not doing for those purposes, still it has that connotation, but they were doing for real. With one of my colleagues, once when we went to Turkey, we attended a real one, not the one that is done for really performance, but a real religiously prepared one. They invited us, they were Mevlevi Sufi order people, and we attended that one. So the students of Rumi were fascinated by him. And then that's why I think that spirituality that he emphasized continued after him. We will, inshallah, continue on some of his verses, some of his poems, and then we will go to other scholars, some contemporary ones as well, like Nursi. I am fascinated by Nursi as well. He has a very beautiful statement. He says, if I were in the time of Rumi, I would have written the Mathnawi. If Rumi were in my time, he would have written the Risale-i-Nur, the treatises of light. So he said, we are doing the same work. I am, that's why he says he's my ustad, he's my master, one of my masters.
Yes, well, I don't know if you know this or not. I just read this, literally just this week.
Yes.
That Rumi is so well known in the Western world that in London right now, there is a new musical show about the life of Rumi and his relationship with Shams, who was his spiritual guide, right?
I never heard of that.
Yeah, right now. And it's in a big theater. So it is very, apparently, this is quite something. So that was striking to me. So here's
you haven't watched it, right? You haven't watched it?
What do you think has made Rumi so popular in the Western world?
What I think is that Rumi is talking about something that we need it the most, and that is spiritual strength. Because materially we are good, we have everything, we have all material things, but that is not enough, because human beings are not made of material things only. We are made of body and soul. And I think what Rumi emphasizes is the need of the soul. And that attracts people. And I think that's why he is now, even in the United States, after so many years, hundreds of years after his death, being the most read poet in the United States. That is telling something. He is straightforward. He is sometimes shocking. Like one statement he says, if a hat that doesn't have love in it is not, the place of it is the tail, not the head. Even if that person is a Plato. It's so powerful that, if that person doesn't have love, he says that head should not be head, it should be tail. So it's really very shocking. And that's why Rumi sometimes you see very, very straightforward, very strong, because I think for the sake of the truth, he does not sacrifice his statements. He does not negate the things that he wants to say. He wants to say it because he thinks that it's important to emphasize that truth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's quite wonderful. I have a poem here.
Yes,
It's a Rumi poem. It's at the very end of this talk that I gave. I gave it at the Rumi Club, by the way. I don't know if you realize this, but there are universities all over the country that have Rumi clubs. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful.
I don't know if you knew that. Right. So this poem, I thought would be something that we could just close with, because of course it's the poetry. I believe in this musical that they're doing. They put these poems that are mystical poems to music. Okay. Right. Which is, it would be quite interesting to see if it comes to this part of the world at some point. So this is a poem, and maybe you can reflect a little bit once I read it to you.
Yes, please.
And what he's saying here, because it's really very beautiful. He says, "I died from a mineral, and plant became. Died from plant, and took a sentient frame. Died from the beast, and donned human dress. When from my dying did I e'er grow less? Another time from manhood I must die, to soar with angel pinions through the sky. Midst angels also I must lose my place, since everything must perish, save God's face. Let me be naught. The harp strings tell me plain that unto God we return again."
Wow, that's remarkable. It's unbelievable.
It's absolutely stunning.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
I think he speaks of the pyramid of creation. First, like the level of mineral is the lowest one. Minerals are developing, they become at the level of animals. Animals are developing because you eat animals. Yeah, as a human beings, we eat animals. Animals are becoming human. So from the level of animals, the move is to humanity. So this is the third stage of in the pyramid of creation. But humanity is not the highest one. There is a higher one, and that is to become an angel. So purify yourself, purify your heart, purify your nature until you become like an angel. And then Rumi does not stop there. Yes, you become an angel. That's very beautiful. That is the highest. Be higher than angels. Then how you will become higher than angels? Be united with the divine. That is what is called annihilation in God. You have left your ego. You have annihilated your ego. And whatever you think is God. You don't think anything other than that. One Islamic scholars would say, like you have a little ice. That ice is like your ego, and you throw it into the ocean, and it becomes part of the ocean. And then you cannot find that piece of ice anymore because it's annihilated. So annihilate your ego in the presence of God. And that's why beautifully Mevlana Jami, Abdurrahman Jami is very famous mystic. He says, see only one. Yeki sin. Yeki kha. Yeki kha means want only one. Want only one. That one with capital O. And then look for only one. Follow only one. So he makes like all the things just to refer to the oneness, and everything else is secondary. Everything else should serve that one, and that becomes valuable if it is serving that one. If it is not, it becomes an obstacle. So I think in this poem, Rumi is referring to the highest level that human beings will reach, and that is fana fillah. It is in the Sufi context known as fana fillah. That means annihilation in the presence of God. And beautifully ends with a return, because I'm now working on my book, Islamic Eschatology, and I found this verse so much frequently mentioned in the Quran. Return is to God. You all will return to God. This is almost like hundreds of verses. At the end, will say, your return is to God. And Rumi uses this as, even in this world, you can actually elevate spiritually until you return to God and become united, become annihilated in the presence of God.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was
excellent.
Thank you. Good. I think the next talk that you're going to give, or the next series really, is on mercy, which is your specialty. I know that, which is great. And also, I don't know whether, people, all the people that are looking today, realize that mercy was also an influence, tremendous influence on Gulen, and out of Gulen and the Hizmet movement, comes the Peace Islands Institute. So, it's all very connected. So I think we're all looking forward to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Those next talks that you'll give at the end of each month.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. You all have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
And take care, inshallah.
See.